Peter was the kind of person who rehearsed conversations in the shower. Not just important ones, all of them. The reply he should have given his coworker on Tuesday. The way he could have said that thing at dinner and sounded smarter. The comeback he thought of 3 hours too late, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, running the simulation again, this time with him winning. He would have told you he was just a thinker, a reflective person, someone who cared about doing things right. He was lying, not to you, to himself. The truth, the actual ugly, uncomfortable truth, is that Peter was addicted to other people's opinions of him. Fully, completely, embarrassingly addicted. He checked his phone after sending a message the way some people check a wound, looking for signs, calculating response time, reading tone in a 2-word reply like it was ancient scripture. Sounds good. Does that mean it actually sounds good? Or is that the passive-aggressive sounds good? Did I do something? Should I follow up? Maybe I shouldn't follow up. I'll follow up. This was Peter. This was the inside of Peter's head. All day, every day. And the worst part? Nobody knew. From the outside, he looked fine. He had a job, an apartment, friends who invited him places. He was funny in groups, reliable in a crisis, the kind of person people described as solid, normal, put together. What they didn't see was the processing that happened before every single interaction. The 20 minutes he spent deciding what to wear to a casual Friday lunch because the wrong choice might say the wrong thing about who he was. The way he laughed a little too fast at his manager's jokes, not because they were funny, but because he needed his manager to like him and he hated himself for needing it, and then he laughed again to cover up the hating. He had opinions, actual opinions, but he kept most of them in a drawer somewhere and only brought out the ones that seemed safe, the ones that matched the room, the ones that wouldn't cost him anything. He called this being diplomatic. It wasn't diplomacy. It was fear wearing a blazer. And the really insidious part, the part that made it almost impossible to see clearly, was that it worked, often enough. He was liked, he was invited back, he got the nod, the approval, the validation he was looking for, which only confirmed the system, which only made him depend on it more. A slot machine that pays out just enough to keep you pulling the lever. He kept pulling. And then there were the insults. Not dramatic ones, not the movie kind where someone destroys you in front of a crowd and there's a record scratch. The real kind, the quiet, offhand, plausibly deniable kind that lands in the middle of a normal Tuesday and then lives in your head for 6 weeks. A colleague who would agree with something Peter said and then 30 seconds later say the exact same thing slightly differently and get credit for it. A friend who used the word surprisingly before a compliment. Surprisingly good point, man, and probably meant nothing by it. A family member at Christmas who asked about his job with a specific kind of patience usually reserved for explaining things to children. Normal stuff, stuff that happens to everyone. But Peter collected it, every single piece, filed it away, built a case. Not against them, against himself. Because that's the thing nobody tells you about being obsessed with what other people think. It feels like you're focused on them. It feels like the problem is out there, their judgment, their words, their looks. But actually, every hour you spend replaying what someone else said is an hour you spend making yourself smaller. Every time you adjust who you are based on the imaginary opinion of someone who has probably already forgotten the conversation, you are doing that, not them. They went home and had dinner. You went home and built a courtroom. And you were the judge, the jury, and the defendant, all at once, every night. The verdict was always the same, and it was never quite good enough. The moment came on a Sunday morning. No hallway, no dramatic confrontation. Peter was at a coffee shop, sitting across from a friend he'd known for almost 10 years. Good conversation, easy energy, the kind of morning that didn't need anything extra. And his friend said, casually, almost as an aside, "You know what I've always thought about you? You're so worried about what people think of you that you never actually let them think about you." He laughed, his friend laughed. They moved on, but something didn't. He sat with that sentence for the rest of the day. Not the way he usually sat with things, not dissecting it, not looking for the hidden insult, not calculating whether it was a compliment or a criticism. just sitting with it, letting it exist without immediately needing to resolve it. You're so worried about what people think of you that you never actually let them think about you. He had been so busy managing his image that he had never actually shown anyone his face. And the people who thought they knew him, maybe they knew the performance, maybe they knew the edited version that had been through 17 rounds of internal approval before it made it out of his mouth. But him, the actual him, with the unfiltered opinions and the weird thoughts and the things he actually believed, that person had barely left the building. Here is the thing about caring too much what people think. It doesn't come from weakness. That's the lie we tell ourselves to feel better about it, and it's wrong. It usually comes from somewhere real, a place where it mattered, a classroom, a family dinner table, a moment in childhood where the approval of someone big meant something fundamental about whether you were okay. You learned the lesson in a place where it was true, then you carried it out into a world where it isn't. Peter's addiction to approval didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of a very reasonable interpretation of a very specific environment. The problem wasn't the learning. The problem was that he never updated the lesson. He was still playing by the rules of a game that ended 20 years ago, in a room that no longer existed, for an audience that had long since gone home. Most of us are doing this. We just don't notice because we're too busy rehearsing conversations in the shower.
He didn't transform overnight. Let's be honest about that. This isn't that kind of story. There was no single moment where he woke up free, no speech he gave, no confrontation he had, no dramatic declaration of independence. That's the movie version. The real version is slower and less satisfying and involves failing repeatedly and catching yourself mid-performance and asking, why am I doing this again? But something did change. He started noticing the moment before the adjustment, the half second where he was about to say something real and then caught himself and softened it, qualified it, made it smaller, made it safer. He started noticing that half second and, not always, not easily, staying in it, letting the real thing come out. He started saying no to things without a detailed explanation of why. Not because he didn't care about people, but because no is a complete sentence and he had spent his whole life writing novels around it. He started letting conversations end with some tension still in them, unresolved, not perfectly managed. He had always felt compelled to make sure everyone left happy, to smooth it over, to close the loop, to be the one who fixed it. He started letting some loops stay open. He stopped editing himself in real time, stopped monitoring the room while simultaneously trying to be in it, stopped treating every social interaction like a performance review with no clear rubric and no end date. And something happened that he hadn't expected. The relationships didn't fall apart. They got more real. Here's the uncomfortable truth about approval seeking that no one wants to say out loud. When you spend all your energy managing how people see you, you're not actually giving them anything. You're giving them a performance. You're giving them the curated version, the approved version, the version that went through 17 rounds of internal editing before it made it to them. And people can feel that, maybe not consciously, but somewhere. There's a glass wall in it. They can see you, but not quite reach you. The moment you stop curating, something shifts. Not because people suddenly like the real version better. Maybe some of them don't. Maybe some people genuinely preferred the version that agreed with everything and laughed at all the right moments. And that's fine. Let them have it. They just can't have it from you anymore. Because the people who stay when you stop performing, those are the actual ones. And you can't find them while you're busy being everyone's favorite version of yourself. Peter still walks into rooms. He still notices things. He's still aware of people, of energy, of the dynamics in a space. That didn't leave, but the purpose changed. He's not scanning for threats anymore. He's not collecting evidence. He's just there. And there's a version of this story where someone asks him, "When did you change?" And the honest answer is, he's not sure. Somewhere between that Sunday morning and now. Somewhere between the coffee shop and a dozen small moments where he chose the real answer over the safe one. Somewhere between finally understanding that the weight he had been carrying wasn't put there by anyone else, and that the only thing keeping him from putting it down was the belief that he needed it. He didn't need it. He never did. Neither do you. The difference between the person who lives for everyone else's approval and the person who doesn't isn't confidence. It's not charisma. It's not some personality trait you either have or you don't. It's just a decision, repeated, every day, imperfectly, until one morning you realize you haven't rehearsed a conversation in the shower in 3 weeks, and you don't miss it.